So, if you did not know, I'm here to tell you that your natural hair is not appropriate for all occasions. Let's talk about it. Good evening. For those of you who don't know, my name is Maya Karen. I run a fashion blog called Classically Kept. It does feature luxury, contemporary, and how to style, and now natural hair care and hair care tips and topics. If you are into any of those things, please consider subscribing to my channel. Click the notification bell. That way you will never miss a video. So if you could not tell in the beginning of the video, I was being silly, I was being ridiculous. You guys know that I will forever stand 10 toes down in natural beauty and in natural hair. But there seems to be like this new phenomenon that's coming up, or this new topic about Black women and natural hair and Black women and weaves, and the actual idea that natural hair is not appropriate for all occasions. So first, I'm going to talk about my thoughts, and then as a collective, we're going to figure out and we're going to run down some of the, I guess you could say, common events or common situations that happen in our lives. And we're going to figure this out together. We're going to figure out in which one of these situations is natural hair not appropriate, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, do I agree? Absolutely not 100% wrong. I don't agree. That's really all that I can say about that. As I said, I'm not really sure where this idea is coming from, although I do know that there are people who do feel this way. I know this from a previous video that I did, and I kind of wanted to just run that back a little bit. And I will link it down below. And again, I appreciate y'all for the support. That video put me in front of a lot of new people. So again, thank you. Basically, you had it was a Nigerian podcast, and I believe the guest was also Nigerian. This was my first time being introduced to her, but the things that she was saying, I do not agree with. Basically, what she was saying is that when it comes to her events and when it comes to certain situations in life, your natural hair is not appropriate. She said, do not bring your natural hair to my event. And then she, starts listing off scenarios and environments where natural hair is appropriate. And then she follows it up with basically saying, if I'm wearing, my most beautiful dress, my most expensive shoes, if I'm, my face is beat, my makeup is done, why am I going to wear my natural hair with that? And then she follows it up and she says, I would at least wear a ponytail. And as I said in that video, that is a problematic view on a natural hair. Basically, what you are saying is that your natural hair is good enough to go pick your child up from school, but it's not good enough to be at your most beautiful. It is not good enough for you to be in your most beautiful regalia, right? Natural hair is not wanted in a situation where you are supposed to be dressed up, where you are supposed to look and feel beautiful. It's not acceptable. This idea, as I said, because I know women, or I don't necessarily know women, but I know there are women who think that, and there were also women in the comments who were saying that natural hair is not appropriate for all situations. I wholeheartedly disagree. So let's kind of run down some of the scenarios that we all face when it comes to just living our lives and just being out and about. Let's kind of just break these, let's kind of run these down, like I said, because I'm confused. I fail to understand why the hair that grows out of my head is not appropriate for any situation. Now, there are some disclaimers and there are some caveats, but I would probably say 95 to 98% of the time, your natural hair is appropriate. And I will break down that 2%. And when we get to that, you should understand that you will know what I am saying. Not necessarily the natural hair itself, but we'll get into it. So the very first one, because a lot of people were actually asking about this in the other video, is wedding, the bride. Is it appropriate for a woman of color or a woman who has natural hair to wear her natural hair at her wedding? Is it appropriate for her to style it for her wedding? Absolutely, 100%. I will see if I can find my wedding videos, because I know a lot of you were asking about them, and I will put them up. If I cannot, I will just show you other beautiful brides who chose to wear their natural hair. On your wedding day is supposed to be one of the most beautiful and one of the most important days of your life. Why is it that on your wedding day, your natural hair is not appropriate? Whether it be styled in, a bouffant or a coif like mine was, y'all know I love the big hair. Whether it be your hair is just out in a fro, whether it be a ponytail, whether it be twists, whether it be dreads, whether it be sister locks, however you have your hair styled is how you have your hair styled. Out of the pictures that I'm showing you, all of these women look equally gorgeous, whether their hair was natural, whether it was a weave, or whether their hair was straight, or whether it was relaxed, okay? So let's kind of break down the wedding scenario. Let's talk about a wedding guest. And actually, there was someone in the comments of the previous video that talked about like an actual dress code or like a hair code for wedding guests. Apparently, this particular person or this young woman was actually asked not to wear a ponytail to this person's wedding. Now, as someone who was once a bride and I'm now on the other side, I know what goes with planning a wedding. The last thing on my mind is, or the last thing that was on my mind when it came to my wedding was what my wedding guest hairstyles would be. As a wedding guest, yes, you are still going to be dressed up, but your natural hair is still appropriate for you to be a wedding guest. Now, let's talk about wedding parties or the bridal party. For me personally, the only thing that I required for my wedding party was for them to wear low buns. That could have been a weave, that could have been a wig, that could have been an extension, that could have been your natural hair pulled back, or it could have been your locks pulled back, or it could have been your like mini twists pulled back. You guys know that I wear mini twists and I love pulling them back and putting them in a hairstyle. Now, there are some brides, again, it's your wedding, your money, your decision, your life. There are some brides who would specify and say, I want straight hair. Or they'll specify and say, you know, I want a blowout, or I want this, or I want that. But in the grand scheme of things, if a bride comes to you and says, you know, I want a ponytail, I don't really think it might matter. You do have some bridezillas out there. I was not one. But I'm trying to think of a situation where it's just like, you know, you have to wear, to my wedding, if you're going to be a part of it, you have to wear a ponytail, but it has to be a straight ponytail. I don't personally think I've ever come across that. If you have, put it in the comments. Now, let's talk about something where I'm pretty sure this is going to be the most controversial: work, and we can go ahead and tack on interviews with that. But let's specifically talk about work environment. For me personally, I will say this. I think it depends on the profession. This is what I was talking about when it comes to the exceptions and the disclaimers and the caveats, right? I think it depends on when it comes to your natural hair. I think it depends on the profession. I will give you the perfect example. Let's just run down some of them. A lawyer. Me personally, if I were to walk into a law office and I were to see whether it be a man or a woman who had dreads and they were pulled back, for me personally, that's not going to deter me from retaining that attorney. However, if we had the same scenario, let's say I walk into a law office and I see a lawyer is sitting down and we're having a meeting and I'm trying to decide whether or not I'm going to retain them as my attorney. If they are natural and they have blue natural hair, right? I'm not talking like navy, I mean like blue. Think of like the brightest blue. There are certain professions that dictate a certain decorum. I'm not necessarily saying that I'm not going to retain that attorney, but I am going to give it pause, as opposed to that same person being natural, having blue hair, and them being in the fashion industry. Fashion is ever evolving. Fashion is relative. What looks beautiful to you might not look beautiful to me. When it comes to work environments, I don't have a problem, or there shouldn't be a problem with natural hair itself in the workplace, in a career field. I think that is more so hairstyle, hair color, and how the hair is presented. I will give you another example. We already talked about lawyer. Let's talk about a musician. People know that there are musicians or alternative music where people are going to wear whatever they want. If I were to come across someone who was natural and they had green hair, or they were natural and they just wore their hair very, very, very crazy, and they were into indie music, or they produced indie music, or they make indie music, that's not really going to deter me, because I know in this profession that is acceptable. That kind of goes to show their creative side, as opposed to, let's say, someone who is in customer service. Their attire probably has to be business casual or come as you are. Customer service is typically not a face-to-face profession. So in the office, you could probably get away with natural hair that is blue, as opposed to, let's say, your profession requires you to be on a face-to-face basis on a daily basis with clients. Depending on what that profession is, whether you're selling insurance, life insurance, whether you're always giving meetings, or whether you're in a boardroom, your hairstyle will matter, but the texture of it should not matter. For instance, a lot of the times when I was on my contracts, I would wear my natural hair, but it was always pulled back. I would typically have like a side part. I'd slick this part down, slick this part down. So I would have this slick down, you know, it would be nice and wavy and shiny. And then in the back, I would just have a large bun. For my profession, for my career, for my field, that was appropriate. Now, there were some people who would come to our contracts with their fros, and there was no issue because we were not a face-to-face business. My contracts were not face-to-face. We handled claims over the phone. So what I'm saying when it comes to work, when it comes to profession, to me, or I think where the issue is the style. Not necessarily the natural hair within itself, but it's the style. Now, we can take this a step further because I know there's also controversy when it comes to braids and dreadlocks, when it comes to profession. For me personally, as I said, if I were to walk into a doctor's office, if I were to walk into a CPA's office, tax accountant, stockbroker, lawyer, and they had dreads and they were neatly pulled back, there's no issue to me. I don't think that someone having dreads is going to dictate or determine how well they can do their job. The next common situation, and this is kind of a piggyback off the one we just talked about, is going to be interviews. Now, I know that this one is also controversial because there are some people who say you should not be wearing your natural hair to an interview. Again, I think it depends on what profession you are trying to get into, what field of work you are trying to step into. If you are going to an interview for, let's say, Marie Claire magazine, that is very much fashion 24/7, 365 days a year. If you have natural blue hair and you have on a bomb outfit, in the grand scheme of things, do I think that your blue natural hair is going to matter? I don't. However, if you take that same situation and you are, you know, trying to go up the corporate ladder and you want to start as someone's executive assistant, I don't think natural blue hair would be appropriate. The natural hair within itself is fine, but the blue part, they would probably ask you to change that or to dye it to a more appropriate color. Now, when I was in college, I was actually a part of like just a mentor group. I think I was a junior and a senior doing this, just kind of like mentoring and talking to and having open discussions with incoming freshmen. And we talked about this thing, I believe it's called coding in a simulation. People used to tell stories about how, you know, a woman who was natural would go to an interview and they would kind of sit her down and say, listen, your resume is wonderful, but we need you to change your hair. We need you to come to work with more of an appropriate, you know, hairstyle. So there are some women who would just slap on a wig and then, you know, live their truth or live their lives over the weekend. And then there are some women who would just say, well, I'm not going to be able to do that, so I'm going to have to pass on this job offer. When it comes to certain professions, when it comes to interviews, because when you go on an interview, you are supposed to be a representative, or you are supposed to represent what the company is getting. If you go to an interview and you have on, you know, let's say a suit, you have on, you're wearing a briefcase, you have on very small pearl earrings, little to no makeup, you have on heels that are less than 2 inches, and you have, you know, your natural hair is either pulled back into a bun or it's just pulled back into a very neatly styled ponytail. That is what that employer is expecting to get when they hire you. If you come to work the next day, if you come to work on your first day and you have on a club outfit and you have, you know, a fro or you have pink hair, that is not the person who they were expecting to hire. But at the same time, the description that I just gave you about what the person is wearing and how their hair is, whether it be pulled back into a ponytail, whether it be pulled back into a bun, that is professional. It's the same thing when we talk about locks, and it's the same thing when we talk about braids. You know, maybe not necessarily have them just out, maybe just kind of pull, make sure that they're neat, make sure that they're done, but just maybe like pull them back into a ponytail. Is natural hair appropriate for work? Yes. Is natural hair appropriate for interviews? Absolutely. Next, we have galas, galas, events, cocktail hour, red carpet, all of that. You know, again, where you're supposed to be your most beautiful, where you can be your most glamorous. Is natural hair appropriate for the red carpet? Is it appropriate for a performance? Is it appropriate going out? Is it appropriate for a black tie event or affair? It absolutely is. We all know of Janelle Monáe. We all know of Lupita Nyong'o. I believe her co-star Danny. I'm not even going to attempt to try to pronounce her last name. We all know Leticia Wright. We all know Viola Davis. There are so many women in Hollywood that are wearing their natural hair, and they all look absolutely gorgeous. For the average person who's not necessarily on the red carpet, but they may go to black tie event or they may be throwing an event, is it your natural hair appropriate? It most absolutely is. Whether it be a fro and you have adorned it, whether it be a bouffant, like you guys know I love to do, and you have adorned that with jewels as well. Whether it be dreadlocks, whether it be sister locks, whether it be even a natural wig, whatever the situation may be, is natural hair appropriate for a black tie event? I think it is. Absolutely, without a doubt. Next, which, for most women comes up, I would probably say every Saturday or Sunday, brunch. Is your natural hair appropriate for brunch? I think this is an easy yes. Throw on your pantsuit, you throw on your set, in the warmer months, you throw on, your hat, and maybe you even throw on a sundress. Is it appropriate? Absolutely. Next, we have church. Good old church. Is your natural hair appropriate for church? It most absolutely is. I don't see why not. You can't, throw on, one of those little hats, one of the little church hats, and just put your hair back in a ponytail, put it back in a bun. You can even do like a little side swoop, whatever it may be. Is your natural hair appropriate for church? I don't see why it wouldn't be. Now, would you wear a fro to church? I'm pretty sure there are several women today and next Sunday that are going to be wearing afros. They might put a headband on, they might put a head wrap on, but I don't really see an issue with natural hair in church. Now, it might be a little bit annoying if you have to sit behind that woman with that huge fro. But other than that, I don't really see an issue with it. Let's move to a deacon or a deaconess. Is it appropriate for them? There are many, deaconesses at my father's church who are natural. Are they wearing afros? No. Are they natural? Yes. What's the other one? The women in white. Oh gosh, I can't think of their names. And it's right off the top of my head. The women who, this is so terrible. The women who seat you, I can't think of them right now. The women who wear white. Is it appropriate for you to wear white in that situation? Yes, it is. Some of them wear the little hats, some of them don't. Some of them have stepped into the modern times. But in that situation, in that environment, in that profession, in that, in that area, is it appropriate for you to wear your natural hair? Absolutely. I don't see why not. So I think we have gone over mainly a lot of the things that people have encountered or a lot of the scenarios that people are in. Now, as far as, PTA meetings, going to sporting events, picking up your children, going to your children's events, sporting events, walking your dog, going to the store, running errands, simple things like that. I don't think people necessarily have an issue with people wearing their natural hair. That's not really where the topic of conversation was or is. The topic is more so surrounding very pivotal and very important moments in people's lives, like the wedding, like an interview, and like work. But again, the message, just like in the beginning of this video, is that when it comes to those important parts of people's lives, when it comes to those pivotal moments, when it comes to those scenarios, the argument is that natural hair is not appropriate for those events. I forgot one, vacation, which, come on, it's vacation. Do what you want. But I think the message that's being spread is that for certain situations, and I'm noticing that it's situations where you are supposed to be your most put together, where you are supposed to be dressed to the nines, where you are supposed to be in your Sunday best, right? It seems that there are people who do not think that natural hair is appropriate for some of the best situations of our lives. And I'm actually quite curious as to where that comes from. You guys have seen me with, I would probably say, my two very basic hairstyles. Depending on where I'm going or depending on the situation, the hairstyle itself is appropriate for all of the scenarios that I have given. Now, if I'm going, if I'm going to a play, if I'm going to Broadway, if I'm going to a wedding, if I'm going to a gala, I'm probably going to dress up the hairstyle more with some, pearl bobby pins, with, maybe a head wrap, with a headband, with combs. But just like in every day, my hairstyle is appropriate for that, and it is most certainly appropriate for when I'm supposed to be dressed to my best. So Let me know what you think about this in the comments. Let me know if I missed like any pivotal or like any important situations that I forgot. I think I hit all of them. Just let me know in the comments what you think and how you feel. Is natural hair appropriate for all occasions? I just want to remind you, here on YouTube, I do upload videos every Wednesday and Sunday. And of course, right here, I'll put my Instagram handle. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, guys. Bye.
We always have it coming.